Hello, welcome everyone. It is Mysterious Forces Live, and it is Friday, February the 8th, 2019. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. There's a lot of things you can be doing on a Friday night, but obviously you cannot resist a conversation with Buddy and Dr. Simeon Hein, which we're going to have tonight. And this show is going to be unscripted. We haven't had a conversation about what we're going to talk about. No topic has been selected. We're going to have an organic conversation, and we'll do it right here live so that you can all check it out in real time. But first, I want to just say hello, thank you. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And it's a really tumultuous time in the ufology community right now with the I don't want to dip too much into it, but there some information has come to light that is substantial evidence that there was a lot of backstabbing, betrayal in the UFO community. And I'm not going to get into the details right now because this show isn't about that. I want to focus on the task at hand. But I do want to give you this teaser. If you want to hear the breakdown and the analysis and the outright dirt on what's going on regarding this topic, tune in for a special show Sunday night. I'm going to have CW Chanter on the show live. We're going to break this all down for you, just like we did at the other end of this when this controversy first started with the doxing in October of last year. So we'll be bookending this topic, and we'll be talking live Sunday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here, me and CW Chanter, and we're going to break it all down. So make sure that you're here and let everyone else know who gives a shit. If you don't give a shit, then just do whatever the hell you were going to do Sunday night, because you'll be a lot happier that way. So without any further ado, I want to welcome Buddy and Dr. Hein back. These are the guys behind Alien Protocols. It's a YouTube channel. It's a collaboration between these two gentlemen.
Well, actually, that's mine. Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's my thing, and Dr. Hein has his, and we come together for Reality's Edge.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot.
Yes, yes. Don't give me all the credit. I don't want all the credit.
I'm sorry. No, I want to give proper credit. That's right, Reality's Edge. And but you know why I was stuck on that was because I was looking at the Alien Protocols, and it was seeing that the channel was being overhauled. And I got stuck on that today because I was like just kind of looking around, and that was in my head. So I apologize. Yes, Reality's Edge is their YouTube channel. I'm completely embarrassed now, but we had a great talk a couple of months back before the end of the year. But that went so well. I just wanted to have you guys back on and see what 2019 is looking like and what kind of research you're doing.
Well, first, it's great to be back again. It's really great to see you. We really like you, and we kind of resonate with you because I identify you with a lot of integrity and a true earnest search and inquisitiveness, and not lulled into any easy facts, or you don't take, generalities as fact until you've done a little bit of investigation, at least. And I think that's a good way to approach this subject. This is an important subject, and not to go into the Corey Good thing too much, but this is a really important time. And I think we all kind of feel that. And integrity in our field is so important. A lot of people are suspicious about the government doing this or the government doing that. You know what? We don't need the government to undermine us. We do great infighting amongst ourselves. And we should focus on infighting. And those who really want to do UFO entertainment should do UFO entertainment. But don't try and masquerade that as real research, because that damages a critical field of research that people genuinely care about, and it has many crucial elements.
Absolutely. I agree. Dr. Hein, what's your input on this?
Well, I really agree with Buddy on this. I mean, we have to hold the field of UFO research to a very high standard because it's been filled with so much disinformation and falsehoods. And we don't want to be the ones adding to that any more than it's already been added to. I am actually right here about a couple hundred yards from the physics building in University of Colorado, where Edward Condon created the Condon Report exactly 50 years ago, and it essentially killed the entire field at the behest of the Air Force, just right over there. And I feel it's kind of my responsibility to turn that around. It's kind of, I would like Boulder, Colorado to be known for something other than the town that killed UFO credibility and research. How wrong they were 50 years ago, and we know they had an agenda. But that's my standard here. Let's do a little better than that. Let's really look at the data and find out what's really going on. And this truth is a lot stranger than we probably even imagine. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would have to say so. So is there anything new going on? Well, first of all, Dr. Hein, I did want to address something. Can you tell us where you're located? I think the viewers might be curious as to where you're at and why you're there.
I'm in the UFO cab. It's a name that Buddy called it. Look, I'm a sociologist by training, and I thought the best way to continue this research was to engage the public directly in the topic of UFOs. So I thought a good way to do it would be to drive for Lyft or Uber, and I drive for both, either one or the other at various times. And it allows me, in my description of who I am, I say YouTube, celebrity, author, and so forth. And people ask me, they say, hey, it says you're on YouTube. What do you do YouTube videos about? What do you write about? And I say, I study things that normally are considered paranormal, but I think they're scientific, including UFOs, remote viewing, ESP, crop circles, parallel realities, multiverses, and all of it. And that's what I tell them I do. And some people are absolutely fascinated, and it allows me to engage these people in a conversation while we're driving around to find out what do you think about all this? I encounter university professors, undergraduate students, and I just get to see what the public thinks about these topics. And I find that generally people are really curious. They really want to know what's going on. Everybody knows someone who's seen something or had an experience, but there's no one for them to talk to about it. There's no one. They can talk to me. They can talk to me.
He's found out stunning stuff, though, too. And it kind of made me do the same thing he did in the cab. He's kind of able to have a barometer of society. Yeah. So he can say, hey, have you heard of Tom DeLonge? Have you heard of To the Stars? Right. Have you heard of the UFO videotapes from the government? And so many people don't know about this stunning evidence.
Very good point, buddy. Thank you.
So many reasons why I like the UFO cab. I could go on all day.
Yes, the public doesn't know, and that's exactly right, buddy. Thanks for saying that. People haven't heard of To the Stars Academy. They don't know about Tom DeLonge, except wasn't he that guitarist for Blink-182? They don't. The public is almost completely uninformed about this subject. That's what I think, guys. Completely.
This goes to such a crucial point. It's about awareness. We're so used to looking at ourselves in modern society, and we're in a mass extinction. Biologists have told us that. We're in a mass extinction. And we're so used to looking at ourselves. We need to look out there a little bit. Stop caring about you. You're okay. Maybe you take care of you by taking care of others. And maybe that's a better way to take care of you in many ways. I don't know. I think we're doing fine on plenty of us. I think we need to, take better care of others. And think about it. People are so busy looking at themselves, they don't realize that there are other advanced civilizations in a universe filled with life. I mean, brimming with life. Dr. Hein was talking about an article the other day from this gentleman who's just mocking the new videos that came out, said they're blurry, they're terrible, it's not believable. Who are these guys who came out from the government? It's baloney, whatever. And it's such a disservice to humanity because the government has suppressed it for all these years, and it's done us great disservice because there may come a day where there's a sighting we can't suppress. And society hasn't had the advantage of those years to adjust to the cool fact that we're in a really dynamic universe.
Absolutely. That's an incredible point. So I'm wondering.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm sorry to take the wind out of the room there. I mean, it's serious stuff. This is really serious stuff.
It is
and it's
serious
easy to joke and be like, it's weird, there's UFOs, that's weird, or to ignore it because, you have your priorities on Kanye or, whatever. You can justify your life, and I have my own priorities and everyone has their own. I don't blame anyone's path, but I just think we should care a little more. I think the problem isn't us caring about me, I think we have a problem with caring about out there more, and UFOs and RV is all about out there. It's all about exploring and excitement, having fun. This stuff is exciting. This is mysteries. This is science. This is the real nature of reality. That should be compelling, and adults should reinforce that excitement in kids,
Yep. And I blanked out there for a second, but now I remember the point I was going to make. The first manifestation of that within our collective human behavior is how we abuse the environment, how we treat the environment, how we treat natural resources, including animals and plants and living ecosystems, as just simply a resource or a commodity. And once we have put a price tag on the planet itself, that it's only seen as real estate with a commercial value for monetary gain, I think that warps our perception of where we're at. And I think that greed, that core of greed, is really what is the heart of all this nationalism that we see kind of on a global scale. And, people want to talk about what's going on here in the States. And I think that's what's going on is here for everyone to see. We're not talking about that, but this overall, it's kind of seen as like this conservative bent around the world, this very strong nationalist feeling. And people are starting to collectively feel threatened. And I'm wondering if you guys have any ideas as to what might be going on the macro scale to kind of have everyone in this sense of apprehension and fear right now, because it's not just United States. There's a lot of people everywhere that are afraid right now. They're afraid of the future.
You want to talk or you want me to die this one? I love it.
No, go ahead, buddy. I'll respond. Yeah.
I think it's easier for people in a society like we have now to be scared because we're not communicating. We're not being earnest with each other. We're not really being there for each other. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. We have to unlearn all this shit that is complete garbage and a lie because we're not alone. We're not separate. We spend so much of our life thinking, oh, I'm alone. Life's horrible. I'm separate from everybody. I'm depressed, or I'm this way. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I'm not beautiful enough. My hair's not energized or, volumized, all this shit. Young women are taught to hate themselves when in fact, I've been obsessed with Ingo Swann for a long time. And recently I've been even more so obsessed and thinking about the notion that, and we talked about this on our show the other day, how if you look at the studies, there's no doubt that he was able to physically touch things across space and time. Just think about that for a second. If you believe in science and facts and reality, that is a fact and a reality. He was able to touch stuff across space and time. That means when he dies, when his lump left this earth, there was just a little bit more of him everywhere. You're always everywhere. And, people should know all these different cool things that are just cool about life. And I just think you're not alone. You're connected to everything. You're connected to everyone. And these things are important, and I don't know, maybe I'm just corny,
No. Do you believe in a system of reincarnation and a spiritual life in that sense, perhaps a multi-dimensional life that might look like spirit life to us? Do you think our consciousness survives death, or do you think that even though that energy exists, that it's dissipated in a different way?
Doc, you want to dive on this one? I'm hogging the mic.
Well, Buddy had a very interesting comment about this in our last show just 2 days ago. And I've been thinking about it ever since. And I think the way he summed it up is the way I look at it too. He said, when you're a little less here, you're a little more somewhere else. Because
everywhere. Yeah.
That is the way a physicist would look at it, is that there's a conservation principle or a kind of invariance across the entire system, whether you think it's a universe or a multiverse. It always adds up to one. So if there's less of you here, there's more of you somewhere else. And I look at it the same way. I don't think there's any dissipation. I just think you just move on to another perspective of consciousness. All the evidence, I think, there have been people in Boulder who studied the sort of trans-spirit communication, as it's called. And I, by the way, I had a great conversation with a guy the other day in the cab who works at the Apple store here, and he was really interested in this topic. There was a guy here named Mark Macy who did this trans-spirit communication, and he recorded the phone calls with what all we could call them is entities or spirits of people whose voices were identifiable by the people they worked with. Absolutely. It said, that is him. That's him or her. And they would describe what it was like on the other side. And Mark Macy made these tapes of these phone calls. They would call through the phone, but there was never any record at the phone company of the calls. They came through the phone, but not through the phone line. And Mark would record it. And I've listened to these calls, and they're very intelligent discussions of what it was like on the other side. And they just said it just continues. It's a little different over there than over here. But there's a lot of things that you can do over there that you can't do here. But a lot of things are the same. It's just a different level. In fact, I'm not saying this is true, but one of them said it's a place about 100 miles up from the Earth. That's what they said. And
wow.
I'm describing what they said. That doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but it really piqued my interest about 20 years ago to listen to Mark Macy. So I would have to say, yeah, you're less here, but you're more there. So my feeling is something continues, and it's a lot of it to do with who you are right now continues, but not exactly physically. It's density. It's another type of density. It's another frequency. Yeah.
And it brings up an important point. You know, when you're here, a lot of you is here, but still a little bit of you is everywhere else, connected to everywhere else.
That's true.
So, you know, when you leave here, you're just bumped up a little bit more there. And, you know, I think maybe the universe, who knows, can act kind of like a simulation, whether it is a simulation or not. And that whatever you want, you probably can have in the quote, nothingness of the motherboard, you know, or your character can be reconstituted for another thing. And maybe if your will or force of character or certain aspects, or there's a glitch in the matrix, maybe a piece of you can come through in the next one. But we know for sure you just have this one gift of this lump in this life, and it's for experiencing. We can figure that out. You know, it's not for money. It's not for, you know, any of these other things. So make your experience a good one, you know, love and try and make it good. You know, I know it sucks for the most part. You know, it's pretty heartless society we live in, and there's entropy, and that's a bitch, you know.
Right.
But, you know, it seems like it goes really fast. When you're like our age and you're not like 19, you know, you realize how quickly life goes. You realize its preciousness, you know. We've seen people on their deathbeds. You know, when you're like 15, 16, you don't necessarily see that stuff. You don't start to really think about the value of life and these big questions. And they're important questions. And we should not be afraid of them or mock them.
No, absolutely not. I was just, you know, as you were talking, I was wondering how this is connected with remote viewing, in that, and we're kind of talking about physical location, but I was also thinking of the elasticity of remote viewing, in terms of not only being able to transcend physical space, but also time, which is another dimension, obviously. And that to be able to simultaneously, I'm just, you know, it made me wonder, you mentioned the Matrix. Is this, like, you know, for a long time we've heard of the Akashic record, and that's been the euphemism used to describe this kind of database of everything that has ever happened or may ever happen, which kind of seems strange to me. I don't really believe in a set fate necessarily. Although, you know, physics obviously rules the day with, you know, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that seems obvious in life. But this ability to transcend time with our consciousness, is that like really truly another dimension, that dimension of time? I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around what that looks like on this consciousness level.
Doc, do you want that one, or I'll dive in? What do you want?
I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think it's not another dimension. What the situation is our perception is distorted by our social conditioning not to pay attention to the fact that I guess, as Buddy mentioned again a couple of days ago, we're everywhere all the time. We just forgot. And so we have this sense of being in a skin encapsulated ego, as Deepak Chopra calls it. But that is actually the reality, is we're everywhere and there's only one big now moment. That's the way I look at it from a physics point of view. But for some reason, we've shown up in this 3D reality with a very small perspective on it. And we think, all we are is what we can see and identify with right now, and our social identity and our jobs and our gender and all that. But those are just social definitions. That's not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is what we're talking about, is that you're like this large spirit that transcends the whole thing. You actually are the whole thing. Isn't that amazing?
Now we're going back and forth complimenting each other. This really ties into a philosophy that we've been exploring, and Doc has had it for a long time, and we've spun off a couple theories, and even it's this fractal, basically universal fractal theory, and how it applies to UFOs. We have a UFO fractal theory that makes predictions and all these different things. But in life, think about it for a second. You know, fractals are like a tree. At the top of a tree, all the things look different. You know, a fruit is over here, a leaf is over here, a branch is over here. They all seem separate, and they're physically separate. Some can't even see the other one over here. But if you turn sideways and look at it, the branches come together, and there's a hub where they all meet. And that's the branch. And this is a real substructure of our universe. Somehow our universe is built with some sort of substructure like that. It doesn't have to be a magical, pink place with unicorns and all the information in the world in a library, and you're like, right. Where's the record? It doesn't have to be that. It can be a structure that imitates the things that we identify with the Akashic record, or the monad, or the oneness. But it is a oneness. A tree trunk is the one place where all the tips meet, and all the fractal tips. And, one fractal tip doesn't see another, but there's another one under there. And a thing that proves it is, if we're in a fractal universe, each fractal would look at the largest scales and the smallest scales and discover it's strangely, peculiarly, and uniquely right in the middle. And that's what we see.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's evidence for the theory, And
absolutely.
And one more thing about it. When you discover that you're in this gigantic fractal, there can be this sense of fear or awe tinged with a sense of terror. When I took remote viewing from Dr. Courtney Brown way back in 1996, he said the purpose of it, Natasha, buddy, it was a fear reduction program. That's why he was doing it, to reduce your fear of the unknown. I've always loved that description. Whatever you get out of RV, it minimizes or reduces your fear of the unknown. Because as Courtney would always say, people would say, what happens if I encounter spirits during the RV session? I'm looking at something in the past. And he would say, you are a spirit. Spirits are not afraid of other spirits.
And you know what? It's such a great example. That Dr. Simeon Hein said something to me about a week ago, and it was something that Ingo Swann said to him, and it's been haunting me, just completely haunting me, but at the same time making me feel great and just really good, actually. And I don't know, I'm sorry to make you recount the story again, Doc, but it's such a great story. It's so meaningful.
Well, the thing is, I was living very near Ingo in Lower Manhattan with my girlfriend, and we knew he was down there, but we didn't know exactly where. And we had been doing RV exercises, locational exercises to locate his building. Got very close, and we ended up a block away, but we didn't know it. We just said, he's got to be right here. We feel it. Anyway, a friend of mine had his phone number. I called him up, and I got to meet him in January. Right before he passed on, actually, and about 10 days. And when I met him for the first time, I talked to him at conferences and asked him questions from the audience, and they're, gone up to him and stuff. But I went in there, and there you are with the great master, Ingo Swann himself. What do you say? So I just had to say something. So I just said something really dumb. I said, well, Ingo, we've all had our share of weird experiences, haven't we? And he said, he turned to me and he drilled down. He said, they're not weird experiences. And I said, you're right, Ingo. They're normal. He goes, right, they're normal. That out there on the street, and he pointed to Bowery and Fourth, he said, that's abnormal. The stuff we're talking about is normal. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, staying on this topic, but shifting gears just slightly, in your opinion, did the ancient Mesoamericans understand the same concept of time in the same way that we do? Or what did they have a different conscious experience of the passage of time?
Mm.
In terms of the remote viewing in ancient cultures, because I guess I should frame that a little bit. I definitely believe that the ancient Egyptians had some remote viewing program, quote unquote, going on. I think that's a key part of their mythology, their artwork, and the way their culture was manifested, at least in an aesthetic way, if
I
not,
think all
in a
cultures,
hierarchical way. No, go
I think
ahead.
all cultures dabble in the mystic. And, they didn't call it remote viewing. And it wasn't done with those techniques and, all that stuff. But I think we all sense it. We all have little touches to the fractal. We all sense a connection to things out there. We all have experiences of the synchronicities when things are in resonance from far away and you're connecting with something. We all have those things. And some people worked on them and got better at them and got real good at them and really discovered little secrets. And some people were good and just stayed quiet and didn't let anyone know and used it to their advantage. And there's so many people today who, and we'll learn this as a species, how we were walking around with gifts, doing all sorts of magical exchanges with people and influencing in ways we had no idea, literally all sorts of in dynamic ways, but we do it instinctually as an animal, as a creature, we're not as unique as we think we are. We're not separate, animals have emotions too, as much as we hate to admit it, so we all have this thing. I don't know, lately I've gone through a lot of this stuff and it just feels good to be connected to remote viewing, because remote viewing immediately connects you to this reality that people don't let you know about. You can do this stuff. I'm sure there's people out there who've seen remote viewing and they maybe see a pencil sketch and they're like, that's bullshit. It's not always perfect. It's not always, but there is, when you do it and you see, there's magic in there. It's real.
Do you think this is the manifestation, just literally the path of evolution, and that we as a species will become more psychic over time? And, perhaps that's the missing link of our kind of estimation of what the future may look like for us. And we think that it's all based in technology, but it's easy to imagine that it's really going to be that meeting point between consciousness and technology, which is really going to, I don't know. I question whether are we going to be more fully human because we created the technology, or have we really stepped into some kind of transhumanism future where our reality is augmented through technology? And where do we draw the line? Do we draw that line with medical technology to keep you alive or keep you from dying from a disease? Or, are we talking about expanding your physical memory to the capacity of a computer? Where do we draw the line between those?
Man, that's a whole show, isn't it? Right there. That's a whole show. It's another couple hours. Can I just throw my 2 cents on about that? I mean, we are not going to become more psychic because we already are all psychic. It's a permission that society gives us to be who we really are and stop insisting that we be something different. That's what has to change and evolve. It has to admit that this is built into us. It's innate. I think, buddy, anyone who's been involved with this agree. It's already there, but you're not listening to it because it's a very subtle signal.
And you learn little tricks and you exercise.
We need to be. We're already as psychic as we need to be.
Totally right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I would insist that any technology that we develop around us just augment and add to what we already are, our human abilities, not replace them and not substitute. I think a lot of people in AI have got it all wrong. We're not going to take machines and get rid of the people and just have the machines. Where's the fun in that? I don't think that's I want the machines to augment and help me with what I'm already doing, help me expand. And if it doesn't do that, we shouldn't tolerate it. That's my feeling about it. Now, one thing about the indigenous societies, the Aborigines had this concept of dream time. And they often believed they could communicate with their other tribal members in Australia through the Dreamtime communication. You just read about it. There's a book called Voices of the First Day. I forget the author, but it was all about the indigenous peoples already can do this. I guarantee you. It's us Westerners with our logical, linear, rational minds that think we've got everything figured out that are the problem, because we push it all away in favor of left brain analysis. And left brain analysis is a good thing, but it's just limited. It's limited.
Right.
No, I think we're at such a dynamic time in our species too that maybe we're not going to be one thing. You know, it's okay to change, you know, and all species change and evolve over time. We're not going to be this human always, and that's okay, you know, and we're going to evolve. I have a feeling in the universe, when technology reaches a certain point, any organic species has a choice to go post-biological. And there's so many enticing aspects about that: immortality, avatars. I mean, so many different things. Hive mentality keeps you safer. I mean, all these different things. And I'm sure some would be staunch holdouts. I ain't going to put no metal in me. God darn it. Get him out of here. You know, you're going to have all sorts of different types. And, you know, as humanity goes into space, that's a glorious thing. You know, one group will be dropped off on a planet, and maybe after 100,000 years, they'll evolve a little differently because they chose to live a different way than another colony that was further away. Maybe. And, you know, these colonies will all make up their own rules. They'll make up their own laws. They'll be their own. So who knows? It's kind of glorious and magic and a mystery and what we make ourselves. We make what we want to make of ourselves. Like this life, you know, like our species, I think.
Absolutely. No, yeah, as you were speaking and saying that, I couldn't help but think about what Timothy Leary had talked about on this topic, the projection of ourselves. I saw him speak. He did a speaking tour across the country about 2 years before he died. He started it, and he went through the Midwest, and I happened to catch him about probably somewhere between 1.5 to 2 years before he passed away. And he was talking about our consciousness and how, you know, the original stepping into the church with the stained glass, that was the high technology of the moment, right? That colored light, to be inside of a cathedral, to have your consciousness changed by that space. That as soon as you altered your perceptions, you were in this other state of awareness. And it's obvious that we're wired to respond to that. You know what I mean? Like we create those spaces, and we create those spaces, you know, ultimately in our imagination more than anywhere else, right? Absolutely. We all have this rich, I mean, does any one person, I hope I'm not meandering too much here. Does any one person ever really stop and think about your own rich internal life that is fueled by your imagination, whether it's what you fantasized about or whether you're processing what's going on in your life? And I mean, each one of those inner worlds is completely private. Like no one else can ever really know what that is. And yet we're all interconnected on this consciousness level.
There could be that hive. You know, there's that thought that as technologies advance, you have to become a hive on some level and share thoughts. And I don't want to lose my identity, but you could still be an identity and have, like you're saying, that little shell. But then maybe if you wanted to, I could access Dr. Hein's brain to find out what the guy in the UFO cab said 2 hours ago, because I wanted to know about that. Or I could live through your experience and feel what it's like to do one of these shows. That might be cool too. Those notions are kind of exciting. I don't know if I'd want to do that or not. I think one life is tough enough, but you know,
right.
You know, guys, I got to tell you this, what you're talking about, I'm getting a very strong signal of what I should say, which is the UFO crash retrieval cases. It's such a sensitive thing. I know that it's super top secret. We're talking about the materials and what makes these craft work. And I couldn't help but think, buddy, about how almost in every case they report that the craft is conscious, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you talk to people involved in the retrievals, and I know this must be classified at the highest level, but let's just spill it out right now. There are people that are involved in crash retrievals. Yeah. And they are told under no circumstances to ever talk about it. I'm afraid that they're told to shoot on sight anyone that comes even close to those things.
I have heard. Yeah.
Well, that's in very remote locations. Very remote. But I have talked to people involved with this, and those craft are conscious. They are conscious.
It's not fanciful. It's not fanciful. What Doc's saying is not fanciful. Look at the car you're driving. You're driving a smart car. It talks to you now. And you know what?
Right.
Once the difference, you know, gets into some serious ethics. Humanity's at the stage where I think we're like 17, about to turn 18. We're about to get the keys, you know, to go travel around. But we have to do a little responsibility and clean up our fucking room first. And we have to look at some of these issues. You know, and I think going out there will allow us to look back and look at a lot of these issues. You know, it's, you know, we got a lot of problems to solve.
Right. Well, you know, I don't know. I don't want to overstate the obvious, but you know, it's just, it really is such a battle between our animal nature and our higher nature. And that animal nature, you know, wants to survive. That belly chakra survival instinct, you know what I mean? And that's what fuels all of the political dissension and nationalism. And you know, that's why we're not like one cooperative race living on a planet. That's why we're obsessed with borders and money and markets, you know, and that chasing those material goods and manipulating those markets and who benefits from them. That's the only real objective. And it has nothing to do with the people on this planet, culture to culture. And you know, right. But we have created this false separation from each other, and it's really just a mental construct. It does not really exist, you know.
That's right. That's
but
exactly right.
But that core of greed, of selfishness, it's almost like, and I don't want to be too over dramatic, and this a statement like what I'm about to say could sound that way, but I don't intend it to be that way. But it is almost like forces are aligning against each other between kind of selfishness and people who have a greater sense of community and want an outer connection and see community as a solution to our problems and not the problem itself. And the camp that is more self-focused sees community as a threat to the individual. And perhaps, you know, not only demographically are we changing in that the races are blending and that Caucasians eventually will be a minority race, perhaps, you know, overall, we're going to be more blended as a species that way as well.
I think so many of these problems come from like bad education and not good love. And when you're young, you're not going to do so many of these stupid things if you're just really taken care of, you know, if the community takes care of, you know, each other more. You know, some ways technology is supposed to help us and bring us together, but it really only isolates us more and creates smaller and smaller little illusion worlds we live in. I mean, now everyone's like this. You can't see someone at a concert enjoying it. They're all holding their phones. They're too busy shooting the celebrity instead of enjoying it live. You know, live music's supposed to enjoy live. Don't be a freaking cinematographer. You know, it's so funny. And I think a lot of parents are to blame and technology is to blame and people are cynical. There's a lot of cynical businesses and that's okay. Humanity's different. Some of us need to be, you know, sociopathic, you know, so that the tribe could survive. But now we're a planet and the tribe doesn't need to survive and we need to look at each other. And, you know, that's why we have police, you know. I just think we have a lot more responsibility to gain now. And I think our governments are failing us by not leading, not acknowledging these really important issues. It should be on the news every night. The UFO update of the night. Tonight on extraterrestrial news, there's still more activity coming around. And there's nothing to fear. We've got no indication that they intend us any harm. All indications from the top scientists indicate they're probably helping our biosphere. Hopefully our attempts to communicate with them will end up positively. We'll keep you updated. You know, and this week in the RV and studies, you know, that's my magical world where people are honest, you know, and transparent. And those things... You know, I don't know. The Kanye is cool. The Kardashians are cool, I guess. Ish, maybe. I have hope sometimes and it wanes. You know, I get great moments of hope and it goes up and down.
Absolutely.
But, you know, RV and these things and believing in that edge, believing in reality's edge, believing it just symbolically, it represents cool stuff. You know, it makes kids, you know, explore and dream and, it's not just RV. There's psychokinesis. There's other things. And this is a magical universe we live in. And sometimes, you know, it's easy to get depressed and forget how magical it is. And I think unlearned so much as adults. As kids, you're kind of shocked by the wonder of it all. We were talking about it the other day, like an infant's like, this is all like, I don't understand any of this, but we create meaning for them and justify, okay, this is what things in, but where's our wonder? We really don't know what anything is, really, really, really too much, I don't know, maybe I'm being too skeptical, but I'm just so passionate about this topic. I think it's so important, and it's liberating and exciting. And in many ways, it can address a lot of the problems in our society. And, I don't know what the future of our society holds. I could be like anyone else and be like, just want to take care of me. But this stuff is cool. And I'm proud to be amidst a community of people like Dr. Hein and you who want to spend the time sharing this information,
Right. That's a lot of the reason. I mean, some of my shows are just really goofing off, or, it's I've got a spectrum on this show in particular, but I take these topics seriously, the topic of consciousness and remote viewing. And while you were talking, I couldn't help but note to myself that it's interesting that the gateway to a lot of these techniques, or to this more rich connection within ourselves, requires us to slow down and settle down and find stillness and quietness, at least at first, to give ourselves the space to recognize that. And we live in a world that almost forces us to do otherwise. That, we live in a society that literally consumes our attention and is based on consuming our attention. And I think we have been like a frog in a pot of water that's been heated slowly over time. I think we haven't really felt the acclimation to what that is like until we truly find some way to get disconnected. And I just find it interesting that stillness and peace of mind, quote unquote, are the gateways to this richer experience, this more complete connection.
Doc's a remote viewer, and he's a teacher, and I've learned a lot from his videos. I won't tell him that to his face, but I've learned a lot from his videos. He was the first person to talk about resonant viewing and all these things. He's got a class coming up, and he can address that stuff better than I can. But I just wanted to give him a little props there.
Yeah. No. What's your take on this, Doc?
It's just such an important stuff what we're talking about here, because a lot of it has to do with this very ingrained fear we have since we're little children of being rejected by other people and our peers. And I think once we get in this track of going towards adulthood, we compromise our identity to the point where we're not connected to who we really are, and people forget that they have all these abilities innately built into them. They're so connected to the economy, but so disconnected from themselves. Then that's the source of a lot of disturbance I feel that we have, especially in the United States, is this radical disconnection from reality of who we are. And who we are is something we call them abilities. We don't even know what we're actually dealing with here, but it's some evidence that we transcend space and time, not just at night when we're dreaming, like 24/7. It's just this sort of, workaday world that we all live in that forces us, and it's not a bad thing, but forces us to focus kind of just right in front of what's in front of our eyes. But there is something bigger there, and it visits us in many forms. I think it's coming back now stronger than ever. That's what UFOs are, and spirits and things that people experience. Here's the thing. Everyone is different. This is what I've learned from teaching RV for so many years. No two people are wired the same way. And when people do RV sessions, some people are really good at sounds and some people are good at sights and smells, because everyone's wired differently. And so the thing that we need to keep in mind is, as we kind of come in contact with this bigger reality that is really the ultimate reality, we're all not going to experience it the same way. We don't have to, because we're all slightly different, but we complement each other and we'll all be there to support each other. So I think it's all going to work out really well, actually, because I can see the complementarity between individuals. When you do RV sessions, you have a monitor, and the monitor's there just to observe and kind of keep you in the process and see that you don't slow down too much and don't doubt yourself too much. And you really learn that people have this way of connecting to this matrix, and you're kind of giving them permission as the monitor to keep going. You don't lead them, but you just give them permission to keep going on. And so you really see that everyone has this ability to do it, and it's an amazing thing. And you realize, wow, we can really, you know, the whole thing works if we just kind of get out of the way. Reality really works. That's the most amazing thing.
And you know what? It's like you were, if you're just still, slow down, all that, shut up, all that stuff you've learned, shut it off, shut it off. And it's not really just about stopping your senses, because if you just plug your ears and your eyes and everything, you'd instantly be it.
Right.
It's about finding that place inside. You know, it helps. Meditation helps because it teaches you, with the benefit of you not having as active of other senses, to find that place inside yourself where your consciousness comes from. And this is an important point. There's your conscious mind, and there is an unconscious mind just underneath the surface of your conscious mind. And this unconscious mind feeds thoughts to your conscious mind. And there's this line in between the two. And you over time get a sense of a signal almost that something is, oh, that's coming from my subconscious. And no, that's coming from my conscious. And with RB, you learn about the signal to noise ratio, which allows you to listen to this signal from their universe that your subconscious connects to the whole fractal. So, and it's not like a perfect connection, you know, sometimes it's remarkably perfect and it's a humdinger. And other times you struggle. Everyone fails. And another part of RB that's so awesome is everyone fears failure. No one wants to try this and look stupid. But what's wonderful and liberating is realizing there is no failure in experimenting. I'm not a fucking magician. I'm an experimenter. I'm a scientist. You know what I mean? I'm experimenting. It's okay to fail. Failure is a good scientific result of an experiment. And you're experimenting, really, seriously.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And it teaches you that failure. You're learning something to make the process better. And that's true with CE5. It's true with all of these gifts. And it's true with basically everything in life. You know, there's no failure. The only failure is not trying, you know.
Yep.
And someone just reminded me of that recently. So, you know, we all teach each other these same lessons, you know.
I thought of another way that maybe I didn't state it the right way, and your answers are beautiful. I thought of another way to turn this around. I find it interesting that the side effect to some of these practices lends itself very much, say, to nurturing empathy and increasing your empathy. Because when you can become, quote unquote, more sensitive, when you can be more empathic, literally, that is also what opens up your senses to this finer amount of detail.
Huge point. Crucial.
Yeah, I might even think of this in terms of resolution. You know, when you talked about signal to noise ratio, I'm kind of an audio engineer, so that made sense to me. And we're talking about the resolution of the detail.
Mm-hmm. And also, kind of, this is going to sound a little corny, but it's kind of about caring too. You know what I mean? It's like you care about that. You connect. I care about this. I've got faith. There's all these different things wound into one. And you just can't explain it, can you, Doc? That feeling you get when you get it right, no matter how small it is, there's something so weird and unreal about it. When you know for sure that this is really something beyond space-time, when you know it's not just a coincidence or whatever, you know, you should be very skeptical and look at this stuff very realistically. But there is evidence that you will get that'll knock you off your pants.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, if you do the formula.
You know, just about the signal to noise ratio, it's just an example for people watching. This is how it really works. Is if you're going to a lake and it's a windy day and the waves are lapping up and the lake's surface is really disturbed, you don't see any reflection of the surroundings. But on a calm day, you can see the entire surroundings of a lake reflected on the surface. And that's just like your mind. It has to quiet down and then everything is there. It's so hard to describe it. It's not actually doing something. It's quieting the monkey mind down enough to see that something else is actually going on all the time, but you're ignoring it. And maybe you don't need to pay attention to all these subtle signals. I mean, there are things happening far away. You're paying attention to what's going to your ears and your eyes, right? But it's when you lower the noise that the signal is there, and you realize, wait a minute, it's there all the time. So why aren't I paying attention? But you do. But Natasha, you do pay attention to it, and Buddy will identify this when there's an urgent need, something in your life, a friend, a family, matter, you get an intuition. That's when it pops through the lemon and it says, pay attention to this now. It's a feeling about a person or a place. And so many people say, I'm so glad I took this type of training because it taught me to pay attention to that feeling about people. The first immediate impression you get about things is often very accurate.
And, this is a really cool point about it is, in life, sometimes we spend so much time frantically searching out there, racing, searching for the answer, the secret, the solution. Where am I going to find it? We're frittering and toiling and all of these things. And if you just calm down and slow down and still your mind and don't even search for it, the answers really come to you. They come to you. Yeah, and that is super poetry. And it also kind of matches that fractal theory too, because you can go searching as much as you want outside in the physical world, bigger and bigger as you want. But there's also another world inside that's fractal too. And you can go searching in there. And I don't know why it comes to you, but it does. I don't know why. I don't understand the mechanism. But as Dr. Hein says, we will find out in the future. This is actually a hint of future physics, is what this literally is. Because if you look at the studies, there's over 100 years of these studies that show that psychokinesis affects physical matter. It's a very, very low grade effect, but it's statistically proved, empirical.
Very significant, right?
And that's important for people to know, that their minds matter, their thoughts matter. You matter. It's corny stuff, but hey, I'm corny.
No. I mean, it has a direct impact on our physiology and our health as well. It can affect our immune systems. And so I think it has a broad impact. I want to shift gears on this a little bit and turn this topic a little bit. Again, do you think I'm trying not to set up like a straw man argument or something overly simplistic, but I think you'll get what I'm saying. We seem to be in this kind of a technological hangover where we got technology and we have become intoxicated with it. And that's where we're at. But some of us are now starting to kind of take our head up out of the bottle and look around and say, wow, that's like really addictive. The smartphones, going into a store and seeing a television on the shelves, throwing advertisements at you instead of just going down the aisle. We're being bombarded all the time with this media. And so we're having this kind of hangover. And do you think that we have been accustomed, maybe on some subconscious psychological level, that religion filled that place for us in our imagination? But as science has prevailed and really become the new religion, that rich religious life that humanity kind of collectively had, that kind of kept them hanging on, that gave them some kind of moral or social structure, doesn't really exist anymore. So now we have a vacuum in our lives collectively of a lack of mythology or religious ideology that really ties us together. If anything, it seems more divisive than ever. And do you think we're going to have to find a way to not turn to technology to fill that empty place inside of us, that we're going to have to reconnect with each other in the earth in order to kind of heal that chasm?
That's an interesting question.
Very. Doc, you want it?
Well, I really feel, in some ways, like it or not, technology is serving like a great equalizer. And if religious ideas are less important, that might be a good thing, because it's caused people to fight these senseless wars against each other for thousands of years, fighting over the same thing, the same, just slight variations in the idea of what God is. It's so childish. And the fact that we have this communication technology, if it levels things off in a certain way, that might really be helpful. I really believe that this technology is serving to prepare us to kind of converge to this point where we accept these phenomena. Because think about it, we're using the same quantum phenomena here right now to have this conversation and this hangout that we do with RV. It's kind of all really the same thing. It's the same physics principles, I guarantee you, that are making this internet communication technology work right now. Quantum tunneling and all of the weird quantum effects, the wave particle duality, that's all at work right now in these screens that we're looking at. It wouldn't work if quantum mechanics didn't work the way it does. But those same principles allow for these psychic phenomena, for these UFOs and objects just to show up into our airspace and disappear. It's all, I think it's actually all the same thing from different points of view. So my answer to that would be that the information technology we're seeing now, right? Yes, it does allow people to be inattentive and be distracted, but it would, in the end, I think it'll lead to an awareness of a bigger reality.
I think it's a very dynamic situation. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong or what the future is going to hold. I think there's a lot of pivotal moments, and pivotal people will have to stand and rise. And I have hope for humanity. I've got faith that, you know, there's enough people who know that, you know, evil only survives when good people do nothing. You know, and it takes really smart, really savvy, tough people to stand up and fight, you know, a dragon that's making a lot of money and has, you know, very little foes. But I think humanity will always, you know, humanity, we're so unappreciative. You know, we have a plane that gets us across the world where we couldn't do that, you know, 50 years ago. And we're like, damn, I'm late. You know, we're so unappreciative. We'll always be striving and reaching for the stars. Maybe we'll bifurcate and go different ways. But I think it's kind of glorious, and it's all part of God's creation. I don't deny God with the dynamicness of the universe. I think it's a greater testament to a creator, and that this thing is dynamic, and whatever created it, I'm thankful to be here, you know, and I think we all should be. And it's really, it's, I don't know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, damn it. This life really is really cool and dynamic. And, you know, we all have our ups and downs, but, you know, if you're realistic, it's pretty awesome.
No, it is. And, you know, it's such a cliche and it's a cheap phrase, but life really is what you make of it. And it's really, that's rooted in your attitude and how you choose to process information and how you choose to react to it, or choose whether to react at all, which is even better, and not be pushed and pulled around like someone that's just like a bobber in the water that just has to be pushed around by the currents. But, you know, at some point, use your own will to help navigate your own way and push through that. It takes a lot of inner strength. I just, you know, part of what's tied to what I was going to say, you know, and I don't want this to go negative either or dark, but I think it's a good example. These mass killings, people who show up with a weapon, whatever that weapon is, and kill a bunch of people or hurt as many people as possible or whatever.
It's a good point. Important point you're bringing up here.
That's an illness in us, writ large, on the macro scale, and it's unprecedented. Like, you didn't see this kind of behavior in ancient cultures. I mean, maybe simply it's a result of technology, because say if you wanted to go on a killing rampage with a sword, that really didn't last too long, and you were dispatched with pretty quickly. But the damage a person can do with a bomb or a gun or a truck in a crowded area, it's horrible. And so I see that as the worst, that and war as the worst manifestations of our collective psychological illness.
In technology, it's such a danger. As technology gets more and more powerful, fewer and fewer people, as you just cogently described, fewer and fewer people can do more and more damage with less and less. So in 100, you know, one person can take out a city with a suitcase nuke. What can they do in 100 years? We need to be able to have something like RV to make society transparent. We need to care more. And I think technology the danger of technology may actually force us to care and connect more with each other. Maybe not, I don't know, but it sure gives us that option. We could get there with connectivity through Technology, we already kind of have RV. I'm seeing you across the world, you know, really clearly, better than my RV. But we can also have it naturally. But it seems like the universe is pointing us towards a kind of collectiveness, or at least to benefit from each other. We don't have to sacrifice our individuality. But
Right.
I think a colony or something like that seems logical as technology gets worse.
Well, energy follows the path of least resistance. And do you think part of the lesson here is that on a technical level, yes, we could connect our minds together at a distance and perceive each other, maybe in a direct way that we're not even doing right now. But at the same time, it's a lot easier to plug a camera in and turn on the internet. So that is the path of least resistance. Do you think the lesson is that now that we don't need to, say, have two shamans or two monks in remote locations that need to communicate with each other for whatever reason? I mean, I'm kind of making this up. But now that we no longer have that kind of a need, we have uh, an easier path to that direct communication. Do we still have the same drive as beings to use that energy? And is that misuse or that lack of some way to use that energy, is that what's manifesting this illness of greed? Because once again, and I guess I've been wanting to try to weave this in, and I've been speaking, and it's a very complicated topic, but I'm wondering, tied in with everything that I'm saying, do you see climate change as the big existential threat to us, that what could really disrupt our evolution or our survival or our chance to evolve and grow and mature as a species, psychologically and spiritually, so that we can all get along instead of trying to fucking kill each other all the time? Okay. And be motivated by greed to overcome that, is a tremendous amount. And I'm not trying to be like too Pollyanna-ish about this at all. Help me out here. I'm trying to bring
We're confronting realities of, society and future society here. And, we're hoping to find solutions and stuff like this. I think when a society gets more advanced, I think the people need disability more. And I think you're right. They don't need to, because technology is supplementing it. But there's people like Doc and I, and thousands of others who kind of are gravitating to it. And someday people may lose their freedom, and in other cities or countries, they may lose their freedoms to a powerful technology that oversees them, but the people will still have their ability to connect. And I just think as time passes, we are going to need disability more and more. This is such a precious and important thing for all of humanity. As a survival thing for our species, existentially, I think it's really critical.
Doc, do you think that on an existential level, and this is not a political question at all, there's no politics motivating this question, do you think that climate change is the tremendous existential threat that we're being told that it is?
Maybe not. I mean, it does seem the temperatures are going up, and the temperatures are going up faster than we thought they would go up, and there's a lot of consequences to that. But this has happened before on Earth. This isn't the first time things have gotten warm, and we'll just have to adapt to it. But that's sort of a different level. I mean, I want to go back to what you were saying a moment ago about, random violence and people that commit sort of these, extreme violent acts and all this.
Right, this acting out.
Yeah, I feel that these topics we're talking about are very important here because it renews personal sense of awe. And when you feel that awe, you become awesome. And you don't have the fear. I think the people that commit that type of violence is because down deep, they have a really deep fear of something.
Or they're hurt.
Fear of their own limitations and what's going to happen to them. And it probably overwhelms them. And I think doing RV and getting involved in these subjects renews your faith in the universe whatever that is for you, that there's something about it that really makes sense, and that you're just a really small part of that, which is kind of a relief because it's working and you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. So by reducing the fear, you increase the awe. And when you have that sense of awe, you don't need to abuse drugs or abuse other people. You know, I think about this opioid crisis where 5% of the population here in the U.S. consumes 80% of the opiates. What's wrong with that picture? I got to tell you guys, maybe I'm being naive here, but I felt like if everyone learned RV, they would go home and say, wow, that's your opiate. Wow, it really worked. That's my opiate every day. I'll be honest. It really worked. I'm still reeling from the fact that RV works 20 years later, and I don't need to abuse any person or anything because I'm just in this state of like shock. Like, how did it work? I'm just saying is when you're in that state of excitement, you don't need to abuse yourself or other people. And that's, you know, the big lesson here.
And like Doc was saying about that hurt kid, if we all have RV and you can see that kid had to hurt a lot before he wanted to slaughter a school. That just doesn't happen as a whim. You have to have a lot of pain inside. There's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of there's a lot of no arm on the shoulder. There's a lot of not saying how you doing, how you feeling. Oh, what's up with you? You know, I don't know. I disagree with Doc that we may not be okay. I think that this is a unique circumstance in human history. I think we're under a lot of different eschatological real threats that you have to rationally look at and say that is a realistic threat. It should be seriously investigated and prepared for the consequences. Climate change is just the least of them, actually. If you look at our magnetosphere, it's in the process of weakening and flipping. It's flipped throughout history. And it's obviously in a dramatic weakening process. And if you look at the planets closer to the sun and further away from us, any planet that has iron core in it, part of its natural lifespan is to have a magnetic core that spins, slows down, they lose its core. But what happened with Mars, Mars had an atmosphere and an ocean. And once it lost its magnetosphere, it lost its defense, lost the atmosphere, lost the ocean. And when we lose our magnetosphere, which we're in the process of, it could happen this one. It could be the next one, who knows? But there's also things we never even knew about. As we get smarter, we find out about new dangers. There's cosmic rays that could incinerate us without even knowing, gamma ray bursts and solar flares and pandemics, and new technology emerges stuff. And as time passes, I believe there's more and more of the threat. And our planet gets smaller and smaller, and we need to diversify. We shouldn't put all of our eggs in one Earth basket. Because the dinosaurs didn't make it because they didn't have a space program. We have a space program. We can do something about it. Now we can make it. So I don't know. I don't want us to be found in the fossil record. I won't be.
No. I hear that. Doc, did you have a response?
I mean, buddy, you're an eternal being. What do you care about cosmic?
That's true. But, you know, that's true. I'm everywhere anyway.
I'm going to take Courtney's side. Eternal beings are not afraid of temporary circumstances. And this is, now, what may happen, buddy? You may be right. We may go extinct. It could happen. Look, we're not really treating the Earth very well. We're kind of really, but maybe that'll happen. But we'll continue at another level, and I'm not really particularly worried. Of course, I don't want these things to happen, and I wish the dinosaurs were still around because they were kind of cool. I mean, they are around. They're chickens. The chickens are relatives of Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know that.
You can touch them through RV, though, if you want to. They are still around.
Yes, no, I did. I once viewed the destruction of the dinosaurs. It was one of the early targets we did. And it was something. Boy, that destruction. I still remember it. The air was the purest before the asteroid hit. The air was this beautiful. It doesn't smell like that anymore. That's what I got in the RV session. This fresh air before pollution. Can you imagine how sweet that it had this beautiful sweet smell? And then the monitor moved us to the significant event of the target, and all of a sudden it was dust. We didn't know what the target was. And destruction. I know. I've been there. Well, guys, I'm kind of being facetious, but I've been there. But look, we can't always control what happens to us. We just have to do our best and remember that there's a permanence to it that will transcend everything. That's all I'm going to say about it.
We're all going to be fine.
I'm wondering if
Natasha.
We can do good. We can do bad.
No. Well, there's an old saying that, a bird flies with two wings, and if it flaps with only one wing, it will just fly around in circles.
Yeah.
So maybe in the same way, we need that part of our nature. I can't help but think that we can have a view of a greater reality such as that, as being eternal beings, but at the same time also feel a sense of responsibility and stewardship of the environment and what kind of world we leave for future generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
That we're going to leave, people 200 years from now dealing with an incredible crisis that we can't even imagine, that is a direct result of our piss poor decision making at this time. So, we have to feel some responsibility towards the environment, towards animals, and towards the people of the future, and not just be complete assholes and consume everything in sight and pollute without any
that's a virus.
check
We're not
on ourselves.
We can care. That's one of the cool things about this existence. We're not a virus. We don't have to be destructive. We can be creative and beautify things. This life is a gift. And like Doc says, he's truly right. We can do whatever we want. We'll be fine. But, we can do the right thing. We can do a good thing. We can support life. We can represent creativity. We can represent destruction. It's your choice. It's your life. For me, representing creativity is so cool because to me, any idiot can destroy. It's pretty easy. But, it takes some creativity and talent to create something, And so for me, that's more of an indication of talent and coolness and more rewarding. And doing the right thing just seems obviously the right. But I'm not, I think in many ways, it is what it is. We're having what we're having, I would like to see things for humanity, but I don't know, and in a weird way, I am such an idiot. I talked tonight about a lot of things. I think I know my white horse that I'm riding on. People should do this way or think that way. I don't fucking know. I'm struggling just like everybody else. We're all in this dream, but I do know RV is real. I do know you can touch across space and time. And I do know love is real. And I do know that Doc and I will continue doing Reality's Edge.
See you on the edge, buddy.
I'll see you, my friend.
So what do you guys have going on for the rest of 2019? Do you guys have any specific plans? What are you guys looking at? Any guests or topics?
Well, I'll just
do you have a direction?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking at the UFO MegaCon coming up in Laughlin, Nevada, at the end of March. You know about this one, Natasha? This conference, the MegaCon?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's put together by Bob Brown, who used to run the International UFO Congress before the Open Minds TV people took it over, but I think he probably really missed having these conferences, and he gets a lot of guests that you haven't heard from so much. And they asked me to talk about UFOs and remote viewing, and I'll be talking about this very interesting phenomenon that we've heard from the To the Stars Academy scientists and the people on the Princeton and the Nimitz about the psychic effects of being in the presence of these anomalous objects, and how it shows there's a continuity between RV and this larger field of energy and information in ways we don't even really understand yet, but it connected. Buddy's been delving into this recently on some of his videos about the Valet-Davis model. But these topics, as Buddy and I like to say, are connected in very interesting ways. It's not there's just UFOs over here and RV over here. It's all part of the same system, and we're piecing together how it all fits together. You know this, Natasha. People that have these encounters with these objects have psychic experiences even before the encounter that they never had before. Afterwards, but before, why? If they're just little guys getting in a ship, metal ship, and coming over, you see where I'm going. So that's what I'm working on, and I've got an RV class, as Buddy said, coming up in April here in Boulder. Yep, 3D class. People are welcome to sign up for it. You're welcome to contact me and go to my sites and sign up.
I will provide a link down in the description, so keep an eye out for that. Buddy, what do you have going on this year or in the near future? What's happening?
Oh, boy. Well, interesting things have been happening, needless to say. There's an incredible research project I'm involved with in Canada with an incredible company that's researching the powers of the mind, and it's going to be for, by, and psychics, and to explore, it's going to be run by scientists, and a legitimate exploration and a real research project that hasn't been done on this level, real innovation to get to some of the hearts of these issues. if RV is real, and what Doc just said before is real, that RVs, I mean, remote viewing utilizes a substructure of the universe that's really there. Ingo Swann really did touch those places, and what we're saying is real. An advanced civilization would know that and utilize it. So UFOs prove what we're saying is right. There is a substructure to the universe. Listen to the advanced civilization. And so we want to do that research carried on in there in Canada, and then working on my other projects and research, doing some research with Doc as well. And I'm just really about the research aspect of this stuff. I love this stuff. And I want to educate the public as much as I can.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Next time we get together, I would like to talk about, maybe we can zero in on the topic. I think it's a little late to hammer on this, but are UFOs themselves an extension of the consciousness of these other beings? Like, is that literally the vehicle that does the interdimensional travel and is literally a manifestation of alien consciousness that we can see?
I'd love to dive into that. We could do our fractal UFO theory.
Yes. So for next time, let's do that.
Yeah,
because I'm hoping you guys will come back on soon. I love talking to you.
Yeah,
be honored.
And I want to thank the viewers for hanging with us. I know this kind of snaked its way around, and I meandered a little bit in some of my questions, but this is such a complicated issue or topic, fractal, if you will, in like a three-dimensional and even multi-dimensional way, that to try to approach some of these concepts really takes a lot of context building so that you can frame the question so that it even makes sense. And I think part of what I was trying to say to bring it all around and kind of bookend the episode was that I wonder if we're in this place where forces of materialism, the manifestations of it being greed and corporatism, which kind of leads to these oligarchies and corporatism, those are strong forces in the world right now. And then what we also see is the uprising of indigenous peoples and the power of people themselves when they are collected together as a group. And so I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but I kind of, and this is a statement or an observation that is not rooted in politics. I'm not even trying to paint a good versus evil, because it's easy to do that. But corporations and big money have also been the engines that have powered technological innovation. So technology can be good, and it can serve us, and it can help us with healthcare. Healthcare is a good way to envision how technology has helped us and has revolutionized how we save lives. So we're thankful for technology in that way and many other ways. And we're here all by computer, So these are great developments. But, that there's a segment of our population that is not focused on this egalitarian principle, that they're focused on materialism, and it's hard for those two camps to meet because it's hard to penetrate through that kind of shield that people may have towards diversity and multiculturalism, and the idea that we are a blended race, and that this idea of race and country is really kind of an illusion that we created for ourselves because of money, more or less, or access to resources, which equals money. So I don't know. I just want the audience to think about that right now. We're in contentious times, and all of the good things that we see in life are better now more than they ever have been, right? We have miracles happening on a technological level, on a medical level. We have people up in the International Space Station. There are people living in space right now above our heads, 250 miles. So, we have that going on. And then we have mass killers going to malls and wiping out families and taking out as many people as they have. And which is like an evil, if you want to think of it that way, sickness, or it is an illness. So how do we navigate between these polarities, between this horrid action, this horrible acting out, and warlike violent behavior and this egalitarian principle that says let's all join together and cooperate because that's the way to survive. We've got to navigate down through the middle of that and have a way to have money and have companies and have technological progress and societal progress without trashing the environment and using up people like resources and pawns in the furtherance of corporate greed. We have to transcend that. And part of this UFO technology, that's why this is so hot. Why? Because 0 point energy, free energy. Once some disclosure happens, or once the technological breakthrough happens that gets us to 0 point energy or free energy, and the petrodollar collapses, this is all over. Game over. Watch. And that's why the powers that be fight this so hard, because they are addicted to the petrodollar economy, because that's all they know. And they can't imagine a different future for humanity. But we can, right? And because we can, I'm going to play the happy music because we're not going to end on a dark note. Who can be in a bad mood when you hear this music? Everything's going to be all right. We will get through this. And I think it is up to us to adapt to climate change. We've been through ice ages and hotter periods, and humanity's been through all kinds of shit, and we've survived this far. And I think we're going to get through this. I don't think it's the end of us, but it might be the end of life as we know it in terms of lifestyle. And maybe that's what everyone fears. Change. Loss of convenience. That's what scares everybody. That you might actually have to go out and plant a fucking garden again and have some responsibility for what you eat instead of going down to the corner grocery store. It's terrifying, isn't it? Like and subscribe. Watch Reality's Edge. Check the links below. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Share, comment, and show these guys some love. Dr. Simeon Hein and Buddy, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, thank you for being here. Have a good weekend. Tomorrow night, Mark, Jim, and I, Thwaite. Thank you very much. Good night. And